What's going on YouTube? It's your boy Thomas, and today I got the best Warzone settings that's helped me go from a low KD player to a high KD player. So I'm going to be going over the in-game settings as well as the configuration file and DS4 if you're on PC. So stay tuned. So for our controller settings, the first thing we want to do is change all the settings that we want to turn off that aren't useful, like the controller vibration. We want to turn that off, the trigger effect, turn that off. And then the dead zone, now this is really important because if your dead zone's off, you're not going to be as accurate with the stick. So the left stick 1 to 75, right stick 0 to 100, and this is going to make the aiming really responsive even if you move it slowly. And then for our triggers, really depends, but I suggest leaving it on 1 or 4, somewhere between there. And then for our aiming sensitivity, this varies, but I think the best settings that most pros use are 6, 7, or 8. Those are like the ones that the pros use the most, or even YouTubers. And then for the ADS sensitivity, I think around 0.7. I prefer 0.85, so when I'm aiming it's more responsive, but if you want to be more accurate, you can always lower this to around 0.7. And then settings multiplier, yep, just leave that. And then aim responsiveness is important. We set it to dynamic because dynamic allows us to aim more fine-tuned from long ranges and also make quick adjustments when we're in short range fights. So basically the best of both worlds. And then everything else you can just leave it on default. And for gameplay, this is really important. So automatic tag sprint. Gonna go tag sprint behavior, single tap sprint with auto move forward off, slide maintain sprint off. Yep. Grounded mantle off. Everything for mantling off, and then slide behavior I like hybrid because I can dive and slide, but if you only slide, you can always change this to slide only. And then parachute behavior, put it on off. So you can do it manually each time and it doesn't deploy for you. Sprinting door bash on, ledge climb behavior movement base, and then gas mask activation is manual. And yeah, focus behavior, I have it on toggle, but you can also change that as well depending on your preferences. Equipment behavior is hold, weapon activation, ADS melee, weapon mount instant, tag stance, ADS down button. Those are don't really matter too much because I don't really use tag stance and most people don't, but you can change them if you need to. And then interact reload behavior, prioritize interact, so that way if we want to pick up something or even pick up a plate, it'll do that instead of anything else. Then we want to apply all for our plates, directional buttons, and the rest is fine. And then for our graphics settings, brightness I like to set it to 55, but it depends on your preferences. Custom frame limit, set that to the max, which it should be already, but just in case it's always good to check. And then yep, should be good for that. Now for your graphics setting, this is probably like the most important part. Fidelity FX cast, increase the visual fidelity of the game so you can see enemies clear, and I have mine to 60. VRAM I have set to 70, but it depends on your GPU. So if you have less VRAM, maybe don't set it too high. And variable rate shading on, and then if you have VRAM, you can set your texture resolution high, but I prefer to set only that high since I have VRAM, and then everything else just set to low, and even turn texture shimming off because that might cause stuttering. So leave this low, shaders, shadow and lighting low, off, and you can set everything off set everything off and low for the rest of the graphics settings. And then FOV, I like 120 because you can see pretty much a lot more than any other FOV will give you, but lower FOV is easier to see the enemies up close or even far. So I think between 110 and 120 should be good. ADS field of view affected, and then wide so your weapon's small and it doesn't take over the screen. And motion blur and weapon motion blur off, full grain 0, and then camera movement 50%, which has a cleaner effect on the camera so it's not bobbling around and easier to track enemies. And for audio settings, I think again it depends. You can change the amount. I put cinematic and gameplay music volume to 0 because it's kind of annoying hearing footsteps with that in the background. You got voice chat. Depends exactly. It's up to you what you like. If you want proximity chat or not. If you want to hear other people rage, I like it. And yeah, rest doesn't really matter. And then for the interface, color customization is a big thing because what virtually everyone does is set it to filter 2 for the color filter, and then both, and then put it to 100, and this will make the colors pop more and make it easier to see the enemy. And also HUD bounce, I set mine to the minimum so that way I can see the map easier and it's not on the top corner of my monitor. But you can change that if you need to. And crosshairs as well. I have my crosshair dot on, and then I have center dot on with the largest, so I can see, like you can see in the photo here, you can see that the dot, you can center a lot easier since it's a lot bigger, easier to see. And yeah, that's all for the in-game settings. So for the next part, we're going to be changing the configuration file for Call of Duty so we can squeeze out the extra FPS and turn off anything that we need to turn off. So we're going to hit Documents, Call of Duty, Players, and then for options, .4.cod23, that's the one we're using, and then we're going to open that with Notepad. And so don't mess with these top settings. But the first thing we're going to do is do Control F, and then we're going to look for brass. And we're going to make sure your weapon is eject brass is false. I can't speak today. So if you change that to false, it's going to be cleaner since it's not going to be ejecting brass and all that stuff from your weapon. And then the next thing you're going to do is look for blood. And then change blood effects to false. So that way it's not in the way of your screen. And then the last thing we're going to do is search for Cascade. And then you're going to want to copy and paste this low one cascade into here where the apostrophes are, because I think the default is high. So I changed it to low, and that should give you a good FPS boost. And that's it for the configuration file. So the last thing we're going to be changing is the DS4 settings. Now you don't need to do this, but if you're on PC, I suggest you do because it helps with aiming a lot since it's changing the dead zone. So what you're going to do is on your profile, you go to profiles, and then if you have default, you can change default or choose the profile that you use for your controller. Now what you're going to want to do is go to dead zone, change this to 0, anti-dead zone, change that to 0. And then you're going to scroll down for the right stick, and then same thing, the dead zone set to 0, anti-dead zone set to 0. And what this is going to do is make it so that the dead zone in Warzone, when you play the game, it's going to be actually 0 instead of because the default setting for the controller is higher than 0. DS4 changes that, so it's firmly set to 0. And then you're going to want to save. And also make sure, I forgot to mention it, but make sure for your profile you're emulating a DualShock 4 or Xbox, depending on what controller you're using, but I prefer DualShock 4 if you're using a PS5 controller. And that is the last setting that you have to change. Thank you for watching my video. Please like and subscribe, and peace.